Thank you for being. Oh, look at Prince. He's gonna come out the whole live. I love it. Oh, my little guy. Princey's a good boy. Say hi, Princey. Oh. All right. So we're gonna wait till more of you join, but even before I welcome you to the live and Elizabeth, I want to say please grab a sheet of paper and pen, a pen, pencil, a marker, anything you have, and a sheet of paper so that you have that on the side. And when we get to a beautiful exercise that Elizabeth will guide us all through, I just want you to be ready now. So just grab a piece of paper and pen, marker, anything you have, and just keep it on the side. Um, so yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and get started. People are gonna just trickle in. So tonight we are going to be in conversation with this beautiful inside out soul. Elizabeth, I will let you share with everyone what it is that you do and the beautiful work that you do in the world and in our much needed grieving community. And yeah, we're going to just have a beautiful conversation around masking your grief and having to do that. And unfortunately, some of us have to get through work that way or get through life that way or just certain situations in general. But we're going to guide you through what you can do to have a healthy way to let that out and not just keep it all contained. And yeah, and just some tips on kind of surviving the day when you're forced to have to mask your grief. So Elizabeth, please tell us a little bit about you. For those of you that were not in the last live I did with Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about you and what you do and what they can expect from our live tonight.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the incredible work you do in this space. So needed and so grateful that we found each other and no accidents.
Mm-hmm.
I am I'm an artist and an art therapist, and art therapy is a mental health profession that's been around for a long, long time, since the early part of the 20th century, founded by women, I will mention. No artistic talent required. I always tell people it's almost better if you're not artistic, because art therapy is not about making something pretty. Oftentimes, what we make is not pretty at all. Art therapy is about saying what we cannot say with words and allowing things to come up from our unconscious that we may not even know or be aware of. And also, even sometimes art therapy can show us a path to get through things. So it's just a beautiful way to express ourselves. And especially in the grief space, I think art therapy is so valuable because it's sometimes we have no words for it, right? And so a journal prompt's great, and I love writing and all of those things, but sometimes we just have to get something out of our body. And the practice, some little practice, 5-minute practice I'm going to share tonight, is going to help us do that. And again, so what I want to emphasize is there is no right or wrong ever with art therapy. And especially when we do it on our own, we're on our own. No one's looking. No one's going to see. There's none of that weird judgment stuff. Is it good? It doesn't exist. What's good about art therapy, what makes art therapy good, is that you've expressed something in some way, with, a mark on your paper. And I also always like to say, you were so perfect in inviting people to grab pen and paper and whatever. And for the practice we're doing tonight, and really for most of art therapy, I always say to people, here are the materials that we're using. Use what calls you. If the color black, if black calls you, use black. If green calls you, use green. There's a reason that you might not even be aware of why you're using that specific color. The other thing art therapy is amazing at, and is really my other sweet spot, is I have devoted my life to helping people have dreams and even visitation dreams and connect with their loved ones on the other side as another path through grief. It doesn't replace the person. It doesn't, take away the excruciating pain I've lost, but it's a way to continue the bond and continue the connection. And this comes from years and years of my own lived experience and research into this particular topic. And art therapy we've all heard like art can put you in the zone and, we kind of lose track of time. But art is also a very spiritual path, art therapy in particular, that really many art therapists believe open a portal to the other side. And so, art therapy, even in the simple practice we're doing tonight, there's always the possibility it's going to help you connect to your person in some way that maybe you don't know or it doesn't happen right away. But when we use art therapy in an ongoing way, intentionally trying to connect with our loved ones on the other side, stuff happens. I'm here to tell you, I live and breathe this work. It's what I do. And you've experienced it a little bit. So,
Yes, absolutely. Intention is everything, and like what's that saying where your attention goes, the focus goes, or where the focus
yes.
whatever. Um
Yes. Where
yeah, so
attention, focus floats, something like that.
yeah, but intention is everything. And one thing I'll say, sorry, before we continue, if you can share the live, please, and just like the live. Apparently, TikTok loves that, and the more likes and the more shares, the more people that will see it. And I just want as many people as possible to join and benefit from this conversation because, again, masking grief and like smiling through the sorrow and like it's just something I had never experienced. I was having this conversation with Elizabeth. I didn't experience this until now with grieving my fur baby Lexi. I didn't, when Tony died, I was in a position where it was okay for me not to work. I was able to sustain myself financially without working, and I could basically be a glorified hot mess without a problem. And and let my grief manifest itself however it wanted to, but I have to work, I have to do things, and I can't afford that, to just let it come out the way that it wants to. So having to mask it, I have so much compassion for those of you that have had to go through the brunt of your grief like that because it's just freaking awful.
And
Um,
it's not normal. I just want to add that in many cultures all over the world, people are given space for grief, right? There are rituals and ceremonies. And in one example is in Judaism, there's an entire year-long process of intentional grieving that's very, very, has a lot of parameters. And, if you want to follow all of them, and that's just Judaism. But when we pretend we are okay and we pretend our grief is small, that will manifest in our bodies and we will become physically ill. It's not how it's supposed to be. It's never how it was done throughout the centuries. This is all kind of a function of our modern world, which is why I love TikTok so much because there's this wonderful supportive grief community where we are encouraged and allowed to share and be vulnerable and all of those things. So, my biggest thing I always say when I'm doing grief retreats and grief work and to myself, I just lost my mom and I lost my best friend about a year and a half ago, is never pretend that your grief is small. Never pretend that your grief is small. You don't have to pretend anything when you're grieving. What you need to do is, just like cultures around the world will do it, we here need to hold the space for our grief. We need to hold the space for our grief. We need to give our grief time. If we're, when we're working full time, we have to be very intentional about giving our grief some time, maybe early in the morning or before bed or, whenever it works. And this really honors our grief. It honors ourselves and it really honors our loved one also. I mean, this is like, the most devastating experience of our life. We have to learn to hold the space for ourselves. And, there's so many, you, Catherine, are so amazing at helping people do that. And, you'll share some of this stuff tonight, and I'll share a little art therapy practice, but that is really the wisdom, because when you hold the space for it, then you're not going to lose your mind in the middle of your workday. You're going to be able to function. And, maybe it's breath work on a lunch break. It doesn't really matter what it is. What it matters is that it's intentional, like you said.
yeah, exactly. Thank you, Elizabeth. The way you worded that was perfect because I also want to clarify that we don't mean there's this narrative too that's like, oh, you have to dedicate 5 minutes a day to your grief. and that's the only time you're allowed to be sad. That's not what we mean. We mean if you have to go to work, for example, you can't break down in the middle of a meeting. Or for me, I can't break down in the middle of doing something, even if I feel it in that moment, like it wants to come out. I have to compartmentalize so that I'm able to function. So I would give myself, let's say, a little extra time in the mornings to feel what I need to feel and just be organically in my emotions and leaning into them. And then maybe at work, like you said, a little break. That's what I do. Like I'll take a break and just dedicate half of that break to just being and being on my own and letting myself feel what I need to feel. And then when I come home, and so we don't mean compartmentalizing, because that's something I'm very against, when they're like, oh, you have to live your life and be hunky dory, happy 2.0 version of
No.
it and be sad for 10 minutes a day. Like, it's so against the nature. Like, grief demands to be felt. Grief is so authentic. Grief is like, I'm here and I don't care how I'm inconveniencing you. I need to come out. And this is how this is it. Like, deal with me. It's up to us to like give it, like you beautifully said, giving it the space.
Right. And within that, you're exactly right. Honoring your person within that. And that might be one way you hold the space for your grief. It might be really, tuning into your person. It might be screaming. It might be tearing something. But it's not okay. It we can't decompartmentalize it. You said that perfectly. We feel horrible all the time, and we have to function in the real world. So that's what we mean, I think, by saying give it the space it needs, and then give it as much space as you can when you're not having to decompartmentalize. That's really the only way through it, is to is to hold the space for your own grief. And we use that phrase as therapists a lot. I'm holding the space for you. But in this case, we really have to hold the space for ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read some comments later too, but I just see some coming up. Oh, Glengie, my love, the beautiful soul that's here. She said, "I love grief demands to be felt. Grief is authentic." Yep. Grief is not a two-face. Grief is what you see is what you get. What you get is what you see, and I love it. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm interested in your answer to this. Franny, hi Franny, wants to know, does the grief ever go away? How would you answer that?
I would say that grief never goes away. I would say that grief changes. I would say that it gets bigger and smaller over time. I would say that it can feel smaller in 6 months, but then it can feel huge again in 10 years. I would say that to trust the process of grief and know that it's something that moves and changes. And part of what I do when I share grief retreats is I help people understand and notice in their bodies that it doesn't stay stuck. It moves, it gets bigger, it gets smaller, it overwhelms us. Sometimes it's manageable, but it doesn't ever go away. And I'm also going to add to that, I don't think it ever should go away, because as you always say, Catherine, grief is love. I mean, why do we want it to go away? Why do we want it to? It drives me crazy when I read grief journals that are written with prompts that say, this passed, or ask you, put it all in the past tense and ask for closure. It's not, grief to me is not something that is closure. It's an opportunity for a new opening into spiritual connection. And it's not closure on grief, because grief is love and love is eternal. So it's something we just learn to live with in a different way, which can become very powerful and beautiful in another way. It can, but that can take time, and it's not for everyone. And I'm just putting it out there.
I love what you just said, that it gets bigger and it gets smaller, and it can feel bigger in 10 years, because there's this misconception that time is going to make it all get better, and time on its own, it's, don't worry about it. The way it feels now, you will feel different in 10 years. You can't tell anyone how they will or won't feel. That's one. And also, there's, Elizabeth, so many people have had like such traumatic, like their partners, their sibling, their parent, their friend, whomever, their loved one had a traumatic death, and there's so much that goes into that. So like there's
Oh,
the process on top of the grief. It's like there's so much horror, that's out there, and then so there's no time frame, and then for me,
no.
I agree with you. It doesn't. I don't necessarily like to say that word. It got better. I also don't say that it got different. I just say that it changes, and
Right,
there's
exactly.
layers. There's definitely layers. There are things that I'm 7 years into my grief journey, and there's certain things that I can only process now. You know, I mean, it just looks so different on everyone. There's someone that sent me a DM saying, "What's wrong with me? It's been 9 years since my husband died, and I still can't do anything on any of the anniversaries or the birthdays or the milestones." I said, "Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. I'm that way. I don't. You know what I did for Tony's birthday was last week. Well, June 12th. Yeah, last week. I didn't do anything. I spent the day on my own. I honored him in my own way, in my own private way. I did a few things, but I did it all here at home. And it doesn't have to always be this big thing that you do and this whole like fuss. Like it could be a quiet thing between you and your person. And that day is allowed to be a shit day for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. And I'll share some wisdom about that too. I have a very dear friend who founded Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I don't know if you've heard of that. Her name is Candace Lightner.
You told me, but please
And
tell everyone about it. It's so wow, so beautiful.
oh, right. Yeah. So her daughter Carrie was killed by a drunk driver who had four priors. And we're going back, I think, 20, 25 years. Sorry if I didn't get it right. She has a new nonprofit now that advocates against drunk, and distracted driving. But anyway, she says, I don't use the word grief healing. Grief is not something that heals. It's something that you learn to live with in a different way. It's not a healing. We just did a whole workshop together. Her grief intensity can be very, very high still sometimes. And other times it's better than others. And her daughter was killed 25 years ago. So what happened was her daughter was killed by this drunk driver, and she, before the internet or anything else, became this huge advocate, changed law for, the drinking age got lowered. She made it so drinking and driving was no longer socially acceptable. She was a pioneer. She founded Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, and she saved literally hundreds of thousands of lives were saved because of her and because of her daughter's death. But she always is correcting me. Well, there's no grief healing. No.
I agree, and I think that's why the grief community has that there's such a like a resistance with the word healing, because in literally healing means to cure and to make better, and that there's no such thing in grief. There's no healing, there's no curing, there's no finishing. There's only living with it, and you know you're allowing yourself to let your relationship change over time. That can happen, yes. I mean, if 5 years ago you told me there would come a day where I would befriend my grief, I'd say you're out of your mind,
Right.
and it happened. It's just, but the biggest thing is like something you said earlier, like not holding in what you're feeling and not pretending to be okay when you're not. It's like I feel like the journey in grief for so many, Elizabeth, would be so different, not better, not easier, not less painful, but can you imagine like the less added suffering that there would be if you're having a really hard time and someone says to you, instead of telling you to hurry up and get better and move on and get it together, someone says to you, "Of course you're having a hard time. The love of your life died. Your mom
Right.
died. Your dad died.
Right.
You're,
Right. You lost your
you
baby.
lost
Yeah.
someone you
It's
love, your child, your sibling." Of
yeah.
course you feel the way that you feel. Of course, take all the time, take forever, do whatever helps you feel any comfort. I just think that it would be so different
So different.
if that were the
And
case.
I will keep emphasizing, I do believe while we cannot heal from it, we can transform it into something else. And then when we are able to, we're going into the work that I do, cultivate a spiritual relationship with our person and still feel the connection and still experience the connection in a different way, it's much easier than letting the connection. It's much, no, not easier. It's much less devastating than letting the connection go. Continuing the connection in a spiritual sense is much more, much less painful than letting it go. And they're gone, they're lost. I mean, I always say there is no such thing as a lost loved one. Like, let's get rid of that language. They're not lost. They're just someplace else.
I love what you said. That's so true. It's like I use that word a lot, like transform, and I use it in the context of I transformed my relationship with Tony. It went from a physical one to a spiritual one because we're on different realms. So, like you said, the relationship doesn't end; it just transforms into something new, into something else, and whatever it transforms into, as long as it's meaningful to you, that's beautiful, you know. And I just saw. I'm gonna look at a question here. Dee Dee, my love. Aww. I absolutely thought I had to pretend at first. Must be healed. Exactly. Like so many of us, that's what you think you have to do, and that's why we resist it because it's so, like you said, Elizabeth, it's so unnatural. Thank you for the heart, my love. Hi, Lorraine. Moving on makes others feel better about grief, not the griever. Oh, 100%. 100%. That's why I always say, in order to normalize grief outside of you, it has to be normalized inside. So I always said, you know what? It doesn't have to be the other way around. Though society doesn't have to get comfortable with I don't have to get comfortable with the discomfort of others. I have to be comfortable with my grief. And if that makes others uncomfortable, then they have to adjust. But it has to be normalized within us so that it can be normalized outside of us. Everyone will adjust eventually.
Right. And look how other cultures, again, I always, as a therapist, I'm bringing in the cross-cultural point of views. There are cultures all around the world that allocate like the Day of the Dead, the Mexicans do, and the Native Americans have gorgeous, regular celebrations and rituals when people die, where the whole community gathers and supports the grieving person. We have none of that here. We're just told, get over it. And that's just anathema. It's just really not good. It's really bad. I'll just say it like that.
Wow.
Because why? Why do we do it like that? And for thousands of years, it was done differently. It doesn't even make any sense.
Thank you. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like that's why whatever you share, I always say, it doesn't matter what you share with me. It will not make me feel like, oh, something's wrong with you. All of it makes sense to me because how could you not? I mean, your entire life just completely was uprooted in a second. Everything, there's so many people that work so hard to get what they've built with their person and to even find their person or to even have a family or whatever it may be. And then that just changes in the blink of an eye. That's not something and I also don't like the word grief recovery, because this isn't a cold, like David Kessler says. I'm not recovering from a cold. I'm not, this isn't something you recover from. You just learn to live with it. You really just learn to live with it, and you are able to create a beautiful life again, but alongside of it,
Right. And let's not leave out the identity crisis part of it.
Oh my God.
Let's just address that for a second. Like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
am I without this person? Like, who am I without this person? Like, this was my person. I don't know how to even be in the world. And I mean, for me, when I lost my mom, I just questioned everything. Like, I questioned my life and my relationship and my friends and what I'm doing. And, it just completely can throw you into a full on identity crisis. And I'm a therapist. I didn't even expect it. I knew that it happened, but to other people. Right. But you lose a huge sense of your life's purpose. And then you have to kind of figure out who you are without that person, which is a big freaking job. It's not, it's a lifetime job. It's not like, oh, I'm going to figure it out by next Tuesday. They've been gone for 6 months. I should know who I am now. No, it's not that at all. You have to figure out who you are. You have to create something completely new out of the ashes and the death and the despair and the destruction. And, yes, you're right. It can be a very, very beautiful thing. And yes, we can cultivate a spiritual relationship with our person. And for me, that has helped significantly, like to be able to connect with my mom, and anybody can connect with their person. No psychic medium required, I always say. And I'm looking at a picture of my mom, and she's smiling, and I always feel her, but I had to figure out who I was without her. People say that, oh, this was what I heard. Oh, your mom was 93. You're so blessed. You had her your whole life. Yeah, that was all true. But she is also the longest relationship in my life. I don't know my life without my mom at all. Nothing, zero, zilch. I have had no concept of existence without talking to her every single day of my life and being with her. We were best friends, and I'm not minimizing losing a partner or a child or any of those things. But it was just very interesting to me the way everyone's like, "Oh, you're so lucky." Okay, I didn't want her to stay. She was sick, but it doesn't make it any easier that she died.
Oh,
So I'm
absolutely.
just sharing.
Everything you said was, I couldn't agree more. Like when someone dies of an old age, the first thing you hear is, you should be lucky, you should be grateful, you should be this,
Right.
you should feel lucky, all these things. And it is a blessing to have had your mom all those years.
Yes. Yes.
She's still your
Yes.
mom and she's still gone. And like you said,
Right.
this relationship and the connection, and going back to the identity crisis, what
Oh,
happens to those of us that loved who we were with that person? What about in
right.
my case? Tony wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend, my decision making buddy, my bouncing board. He was my sounding board, my voice of reason, my confidant, just like the one person that I felt safe with. If he was in the room with me, it didn't matter where we were, I felt safe, I felt good, I was held, I felt so much real, true, unconditional love. you know, you lose. He was my jack of all trades, and all of that was gone in a blink. It wasn't just, oh, my husband. That was my soulmate. Like, that was my everything. It wasn't just like the box checker, or just like because that's another thing. There's sometimes you hear, oh, well, it was just your dad that died. It wasn't like it was this, or it was just that. Maybe to you, you don't have a deep connection to your dad. Maybe to the next person, their dad is their everything and is the one
Right.
person who's always there for them. And so that's another thing. I just say it's not so much the title that the person held, it's what they meant to you and mean to you.
Right. And how about pet grief? Pet grief.
Oh, I've been getting a lot of lash for that. If I get one more person telling me she's just a dog, I mean,
Uh,
I've complained to my friends about this, how they're like, oh, it's just a dog, or you should get another dog. You should get another dog. It's like, that's also another thing. Immediately when a death happens, it's looking for the other side. How do I replace this? How do I make this better? How do I make it go away? How do I fix this? I don't have the emotional capacity to walk Prince without missing Lexi terribly. I can't even walk in through the door without missing her. I can't even think of another dog, which I'll also say there's nothing wrong with someone who can lose a pet today and have a dog tomorrow too. That's totally fine. But I feel like your ideas shouldn't be pushed onto someone else. What works for you, beautiful. I honor that. That's amazing. But just let someone have their process and let someone handle things the way that works for them. We're all entitled to handle this process, like you said, a lifelong process in our own way.
right.
You know.
It's so highly personal. It's so
Mm.
highly personal. It's like I said just recently about art therapy. There is no right or wrong to your grief process. There is no right or wrong. It's
Yes.
whatever yours is.
And that's why I
And
love using the word tailor made, because just like your love was tailor made, and just like your relationship was tailor made, your bond, your connection, so is the way that you're going to grieve. So is your grief journey. It is all tailor made. It is very unique for all of us, you know. Well, I want to look through the questions, but I'll do it after. I really want you to. Do you think you should walk us through the exercise now?
Sure.
Just to make sure. I really want to make sure everyone that's here can do it, and then we'll take some questions and
Yes,
we'll
yes, yes,
we'll leave the tips.
yes,
I want to give
yes, yes.
you to share
Yeah,
your
and
tips on.
I'll just do the, if you've just joined, we're sharing an art therapy practice that actually Catherine and I, we were brainstorming today and I said, oh, we should do this one. This is kind of really very, very effective. And so it's just basically a scribble drawing, and it's called I'm calling it a scribble journal practice, because just like sometimes we can't really write or we don't want to write, scribbles in art therapy are used for several things. They help us understand what's coming up from the unconscious. They think of it like a Rorschach test or something. They also help us get out some kinesthetic energy. And so, it's really important, especially when we're grieving, to be able to move our grief out of our body. Scribble drawings also, there's no right or wrong with it, but they kind of express something that, we don't even know what it is, but it is whatever's on that paper. It's symbolic of the grief. So it's a 5-minute practice. I always suggest to people, like, do it daily, like you would do a journal practice. Let the marker or the pen or the crayon call you. You can use a regular piece of, white paper if that works for you. There's no right or wrong with it. And the way the practice works is we will start with an intention, because I'm very big on intention, like just as you are. And I heard a wonderful art therapist, Pat Allen, say, intention is like a prayer that's already answered. And so when I do art therapy with people, I always say, set your intention. It's the prayer that's already answered. In this case, we're setting an intention to hold the space for our grief. And I really love and recommend writing that down. I'm setting an intention to hold the space for my grief, and also saying it out loud. Remember, you're alone, right? So no one cares if you yell it, if you say it softly, if you whisper it. But there's something about putting it out, your voice out in the universe, that, grabs onto something else, I think. And so we set an intention. We do a minute, or right here, we'll probably do 30 seconds of some deep breathing. We will close our eyes if that's comfortable for you. And I will invite you to tune into how your grief feels in your body. And from there, you will keep your eyes closed. So I should have said you're going to keep your marker in your hand, and I will guide you. I will say, okay, now we're just going to scribble on the page for, 30 seconds, or until you feel like you're done. Now, if we were in an art therapy session, we might scribble for longer, but that's okay. We're here and I'm sharing. And we're just going to scribble on the paper, and we're going to keep our eyes closed again. If it ever gets uncomfortable, of course, stop what you're doing and just default to the breath. And it's really that simple, Catherine. And from there, I'll guide you again. We'll open our eyes and we'll look at our scribble. And sometimes it's really fun to turn the page around, turn it upside down, turn it sideways. See if you see anything in the scribble. You might not. I mean, at some point you might be surprised to see, something that reminds you of your loved one. You might see a word or a name. You can certainly add anything you want to your scribble. The main point is there's no right or wrong. And this is just a really simple way to express your grief, to get it out of your body and onto a piece of paper in a way that there's no attachment or worry about it being good. And you might get some really significant information, and it is a good way it's just another practice that you can use to hold the space for your grief.
So I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. So everyone's going to grab a sheet of paper, pen, marker, pencil, doesn't matter. And then forgive my little 5-year-old handwriting, but so this is what we're doing.
Oh,
I wrote
yes.
intention to hold space for my grief.
Yep, I'm setting an intention to hold the space for my grief.
Okay, so
And
everybody,
you can also make your intention your own. You can say, I'm holding an intention to grieve, or I'm holding an intention to lose my shit. I'm holding, whatever your intention is, make your intention your own. started out by saying, I'm setting an intent, we're holding a space for grief. So that's why I use that as an example. But make your intention your own. Just make it very, very specific. It might be I'm setting an intention to connect with my husband today. I'm setting an intention to, scribble out my anger. Whatever it is for you, it is for you. Again, it's a very personal process. And from there, we'll kind of tune into the body. You'll have your pen or your pencil in your hand, and then we'll just tune into what we're feeling, and then we'll just scribble for 30 seconds.
Okay, so everyone grab your pen, grab your piece of paper, set your intention, and it can be any color, it can be whatever you have. I'm just gonna grab a pen. And then
Crayon and pencil, doesn't matter.
Pencil, anything. Okay, and then so Elizabeth, you'll guide us through a little bit of breathing, and then so then you'll tell us when to close our eyes, what to do. I'm just gonna do whatever you say, okay?
Okay.
All right.
It'll be quick. It'll be like a less than 5 minute practice. And of course, again, you're home doing it alone and you have a little more time. I would always say spend as much time as you can in any creative practice, especially when you're grieving.
Okay. All right. So everybody, I hope you have your pen and paper, and then let's start with the breath work, and you'll guide us from there. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to do questions now.
Do you want to do I figured let's do them after.
Okay, that sounds really good. Okay, so everybody have their pen or paper in their pen in their hand already. And again, eyes closed if that is comfortable for you. If it's not, maybe a little bit open. And when you scribble, one thing I forgot to mention, when you do your scribble drawing, the goal is to not lift your pen from the paper. I left that out. So it's you're not lifting and drawing, you're just scribbling in one line, continual. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You can't see it anyway because your eyes are closed. Okay.
So tell us when to grab the pen though, right? For now, we're just going to do the breathing.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm inviting everyone to kind of stretch up and settle in. And I always begin every breath work exercise I do with noticing the points of contact where you are. So if it's your feet on the floor or your bottom on the chair, anything that really brings you to the present moment. And of course, thoughts come rushing in. That's fine. Just let them go. And notice, might be your clothing on your body. There's no right or wrong. And then very gently tuning into the breath wherever it's most noticeable for you. And taking a big sigh together, inhale and exhale, and letting it out. And you might notice your breath as the air under your nose, your chest rising and falling. Just tuning into that. And we'll take some deep breaths together. And this time we will hold it at the top. I'll guide you through it for a second or two. And then see if you can make your exhale just a little bit longer. So we'll do 3 of those breaths. So inhaling together, holding it at the top, and exhale just a little bit longer. Again, inhale, hold it at the top, exhale just a little bit longer. One more time, inhale, hold it at the top, exhale. A little bit longer. And now very gently, with self-love and self-compassion, I'm inviting you to tune into your grief. And again, if it gets too hard, just default to the breath. But see if in this moment you can notice where in your body you feel your grief. It could be tightening in your chest. It could be everywhere. It could be big or small. There's no right or wrong. Just notice what you notice. And we'll stay here just for another few moments. And maybe your grief is moving around. Maybe it feels like it's in one place. Maybe it feels completely overwhelming. Or maybe right now it feels manageable. Just tuning into that. And in another few seconds, I'm going to invite you to begin to scribble on your page, keeping your eyes closed. You need to open them for a second to look at the paper. That's fine. Just close them again. And as I mentioned, the idea is to not remove your pen or pencil or crayon from the paper as you scribble. And we're going to scribble for about 30 seconds, but if you feel done sooner, that's fine. So I will count down from 3, 2 to 1, and we'll begin scribbling. So 3, 2, 1, start scribbling. You might notice the sound of your pen on the paper. You might smell the marker. You might feel some energy leaving your body, getting out on the paper. Again, there's no right or wrong. This is your unconscious scribble. You can make big marks or small marks, it doesn't matter. Since we're live, we'll stop in a couple of seconds. I'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you can slowly open your eyes. And so I'll share my scribble. Here's my scribble.
Oh, wow. It looks like a pot of lasagna. I love it.
Isn't that interesting? And if you turn it this way, so I'm always encouraging everyone, like, turn your scribble different ways. I do this when I'm making artwork because you might see something else in your scribble. And it's also helpful to ask your scribble or to look at your scribble and ask yourself, how do I feel? How do I feel making this scribble? Catherine, how did it feel to scribble for you?
Well, crying is my part-time hobby. I definitely cried a whole lot. I just started writing out, I miss you and love you, and drew hearts, and it felt like a really beautiful release. It felt like when you said to connect with your grief, I felt held in your energy and in my community, because I do have the best community, and yours is amazing too. But I'm just saying, my community is incredible. I'm very, very fortunate for all of you. And I just felt this warmth all over my body and like a tingling sensation. And I felt a lot of warmth in my chest, because that's when my grief is really like the heavy days, it's all here and in my shoulders. So literally like just carrying the weight. And but that was really, this is something I definitely will do for longer. And I want to save I encourage you to save your scribbles. Is it okay for us to save them?
Oh my gosh, I want you to journal. I mean, my wish would be that you keep a scribble journal and that you date the scribble, because
Great.
you will see how your grief changes over time. And I think that is really important to functioning on a daily basis. Like if your scribble is so overwhelming and out there and you felt completely like overwhelmed by your grief, then probably should do a little breath work before you go back to the office. Your scribble is a gauge for where you are at emotionally in that moment. That's also what it is. And I also love the idea of naming your scribble. Like, what would you name your scribble?
I don't know. I feel like I just want to name it love,
That's
because as much
beautiful.
as I'm deeply, deeply in grief, I'm just like, I feel so much love. Like the pain I feel it's very painful, but it's because of all the love and, you know, a lot of missing and longing. And so I want to name mine love. Maybe tomorrow I'll name it F off, but it's love.
Right. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's so perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if anyone else wants to share their experience of making their scribble, obviously we can't see it, but we'd love to hear how it was for anyone. Or
Yes, and if you have, thank you for guiding us. You're such a beautiful guide. Um, if anyone has any questions for Elizabeth, I also wanted to ask you, Elizabeth, what has been your experience with having to mask your grief, and like, if you did, how did you let it out? Like, what did you do to let that come out?
So that's a great question. I'm very, very grateful that I'm an art therapist, right? And so I also do grief work in hospice um, and bereavement in particular. And so I have turned to my community. I have turned to my people for help. Definitely, I'm going to always say get support even if you don't think you need it, or go to a grief group even if you don't want to do that, because just being held in that space is so incredibly powerful. For me, processing my grief is always through my artwork and my dreams. And I've made some very uh, frightening artwork. I mean, it might be frightening to somebody else to see it, but my dreams are very vivid. My grief dreams are very vivid. I also have wonderful visitation dreams and dreams of my mother and my bestie who's no longer here. But sometimes the dreams are difficult, and I have found that the most difficult dreams give me the most dream medicine, as we always say. And so I make art of them. I make art of my dreams as part of my grief process. There's also, we have lots of things in art therapy that we do. We make something called an altered book, which is you take any kind of book that you get from the thrift store and think like scrapbooking, but it's for your grief, right? And things like people don't even think of, like, what do you do with the texts that your husband sent you? What do you do with the birthday cards? What do you do with all of these things? Well, altered books are great for that, because you can put everything in the altered book and then you can close the book for the day when you're done. So what I want to stress to everybody about any grief practice that you do on your own is to have some kind of ritual to go into the practice, and then also to close yourself up. So as therapists, we are always saying, how do you close someone up at the end of a very difficult session? And so, for me, I have a chime. We might set an intention to go back into the outer world. We might light a candle, but personal ritual to come in and out of grief work is so, so important. I cannot stress that enough, because you're opening yourself up. How do you do something so excruciatingly painful and then go say, have a meeting or get on a Zoom call? You can't. So that was a long answer to a short question.
No, that's very true. Even with like giving a massage. Like if I give a massage, I close out that session and I like detach myself from that energy exchange so that then I can go on to the next thing. I totally get that. It's like a
Yeah.
little, it's also honoring your grief and honoring like the time that you're feeling it, and just like you're not saying I'm done with you. You're just saying
No.
you're giving it the honor of like gracefully going away from that moment to the next moment, and it's still there with you. I totally get what you're saying.
Yes, and it's also, and I will say this again and again and again, it's honoring your loved one. And in the work I do, grief work is also an invitation for them to connect with us. And so, any time of kind of creative practice, those hearts you just made on your page, to me, I believe Tony hears you and feels you and sees that. I believe that wholeheartedly. And that is, you know, that's the part of the invitation. It's like so I'll just digress for a second. When we're trying to connect with somebody who is on the other side, we have to think of it like when they were here, you made time to connect with them. You had dinner, you went out, you went to a movie, you sat, whatever you did. Well, it's the same thing now that they're not here. You have to you have to pick up the phone. I always say, like, pick up the phone, that little piece of art you made, it could have been, I'm setting an intention to connect with Tony. And it's that simple. It's that simple. And so grief work can become connection work, can become the spiritual relationship work, or it can be just relief from the horrible freaking pain that you're in that moment. It doesn't matter. But it's just being intentional about holding the space for your own grief.
Mm, I absolutely love that. Yeah, that's everything. I think also I wanted to, if you can just, I know that there's got to be there's definitely a long, very detailed explanation, but for those that didn't catch the first live that we did when we talked about dreams and visitations, is there one quick thing you can share to help someone differentiate if they're having a dream with their person or it's a visitation? Just because I get that question asked a lot, and
Oh,
maybe just so you know, Elizabeth, I'll let you share at the end, but please follow Elizabeth. Elizabeth has beautiful videos and work and so much guidance on all things dreams and visitations and beautiful art therapy. But please, just if there's anything you can share to like a distinct or even
oh, yeah.
subtle
Yeah.
difference between a dream and a visitation.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is only the dreamer really knows the answer. So I'm going to say if it feels like a visitation to you, that's what it is. This is going to sound really strange, but there's an incredible researcher on grief dreams. His name is Joshua Black. And he says you can also ask the deceased, which I think is really interesting if you have dreams where you're more lucid. But in general, there are several distinguishing factors that can help you understand. And I've made videos about all of these on my page. So the first thing is, how did you feel when you woke up? How did you feel in the dream? Yeah, is the first one. How did it feel? Because normal dreams feel like weird and strange, and you might see the person, and you might, have some strange interaction where they have an elephant on their head or who knows what. But in a visitation dream, you feel as though you are with that person. You feel like they are with you in the present moment. You feel their love. Sometimes you are touching them. I've had visitation dreams where I smelled my friend. He's had a very, or he felt a very certain way. He was squishy. And, so how did the dream feel? Then what did your person say? And now that can be really interesting because sometimes they might communicate telepathically and not say anything, but you're getting it completely. But usually characteristic of a visitation dream, they say something very, very meaningful. It might be, I didn't want to leave you. It might be, I miss you so much. It might be what I heard recently, which it's all about love here. And you knew what I needed and it's all about love. It's a very, very meaningful statement. And very oftentimes, you're crying in the dream because it's so real. It's like you are with your person. And hey, I believe you are with your person. So whether they came to you or you went to them, I don't know enough about that to speak to it, but you are with your person. How they looked is another kind of characteristic, because typically in a regular dream, if they were ill, they might look ill, that maybe you're seeing them as a child or whatever, but in a visitation dream, they usually look like a younger, healthier version of themselves. Like, I just had a visitation dream from my mother, and she was on oxygen and very ill at the end of her life, and she looked great. And she was not wearing her oxygen, and she was wearing this really beautiful sweater. And I went to kiss her, and she like told me not to with food in my mouth. It was very like, it was so my mother. It was like, okay. And she was with my father. So I kind of knew, okay, that was kind of my goal, to help her understand you're going to be with dad. And there they were together. And so how they look, and he looked he looked great too. So,
Wow.
how the dream feels, what do they say, how do they look? And really, here's the fourth one, which I began starting with. How do you feel when you wake up? Okay, because visitation dreams change your life. You have been with your person. And I mean, so many clients have told me, and it's happened to me too, you wake up and you're just sobbing, and you never ever forget the experience. I've had clients say, I had a visitation dream 20 years ago, and it feels like it just happened yesterday. It changes your life. And if you allow it to, and if you are open to it, it can transform your grief process, because you know that your person is there, and you know that they're okay. You know that they're just like in this other place, and you've just had access to it. And if you've had access to it once, you can have access to it again. You don't need a psychic medium. We are all born with this ability to connect with spirit, which again, Catherine, cultures have been doing for thousands of years. This is not, this goes like back before the Bible and in the Bible, that this has been going on. And so that was a long answer again to a short question. I'm sorry, but it's one of my favorite questions.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I've had, it's so funny what you said about in the dreams. Usually, sometimes in the visitation, they're like a little younger, or every single dream that I've had since Tony died I've seen him super healthy, looking super, like, just beautiful. Like, he always looked, he was beautiful even sick, but he just looked very healthy and like himself, and he was smiley, and he never speaks in the dreams ever. I never hear his voice, never a word, but I just see him smiling and like looking very healthy and very alive and very, vibrant.
Because they want you to know they want you to know that they are okay. And that is my belief, is why they appear younger and healthier. They want you to know that they're okay, and that they're by your side, and that they're accessible to you. They want you to know that. They want to help with your grief. That is what I believe, that they are so accessible to us because we can have support from them our whole lives, but they are there in particular to support us through our grief. And if you think about it, a lot of my work on this topic began when I worked in hospice, and I did a lot of research on end of life dreams and visions. And it's very, very common, especially in hospice and hospice research, that when someone is dying, a loved one comes to help them cross over. It's like, it happens all the time. There's my mother, there's my husband, there's my father, there's my pet, right? And so think about it. This was my aha moment. If they can come at the end of life, then of course they can come during life. Like the same divine power or God or love, the same love that helps us die is also available to help us in life. Those dreams don't come from two different places, So if you think about that, it's a really interesting thing. Why would they only come when we're dying? Why wouldn't they come when we're here and we need them?
And they do through the signs. And before I tell you a little bit ask you about that, when my father-in-law was dying, he saw Tony, and he was right in front. He was like, he saw him, and he's like, my son, mi hijo. He said it in Spanish, and he was going like this to the air. And
Oh,
he was like, "You look so beautiful." He's like, "I'm ready to go. I know that you're here for me. I'm ready to go be with you. I'm ready." And he died 2 days
wow.
later. And I thought for the longest time, I was like, "What is he talking about?" And I'm like, Tony's not there. And I thought he was like hallucinating, Elizabeth. Then a year later, I randomly went on, like, I saw this random video on YouTube, this hospice nurse, and then she was talking about how all her clients, like 9 out of 10 of them, when they're dying, they see their loved ones, and she always sees them hugging the air
Oh,
and
yeah.
talking to them. And I was like, I was like, oh my God, he didn't make it up. He saw Tony. Like,
He,
I couldn't
I,
believe it.
I can't
I
believe
couldn't
you
believe
didn't
it.
know that. Yeah, no, and there's an amazing researcher. So everybody should just Google "Death is but a dream." Okay, "Death is but a dream," and that his name is Christopher Kerr. He's the head of Hospice Buffalo, and he has spent years doing research on this. He's got TED Talks. He's got an amazing book called "Death is but a Dream,"
What's
and
his name? Sorry.
his name Christopher Kerr, Kerr. Death is but a dream. And boy, let me tell you, that book will rock your world.
Oh boy.
And it was really his research that made me go, wait a second, I'm having these dreams of people. And he's very clear to distinguish these are not like the dreams you have in regular life. No, they're not. They're not. They're visitations, they're visions, they're full on experiences. That's why dreams and visitation dreams are different. It's the same thing.
And signs, which you and I have had so many conversations on, I feel like it's so beautiful that continuing bonds, it's not just for us. Like, they're sending us a sign, but if they're sending us a sign, that means that they're choosing to connect with us as well.
Right,
Like,
right. And I'm doing this for your last video that you posted on
oh my
sign.
God, the Canada.
Everybody out there in TikTok land, watch Catherine's video on
Oh
sign.
my God, I could not. I was like, I said to Tony, I was like, you're showing off now. Now you're just showing off. This is too much. Like, all in a span of 4 days, Elizabeth. It was mind blowing, literally mind blowing.
It's amazing and miraculous and comforting and all of those things at once. And I have a theory about it because he is connecting with you. And here's my theory. I think if we all kind of go ascribe to the idea that we're here to evolve and grow as souls, right? Why else are we here on earth? To like live and grow and learn and evolve. Maybe we're coming back. I don't have all those answers. But when we die, a lot of belief systems also say souls are on the other side. They're evolving and growing, right? They're trying to ascend and learn from their life and get to higher levels of whatever it is. We don't know. But my belief is that we need them and they still need us. They need to heal with us. They need to, and heal's not the right word, but they need us to grow and evolve also. We still need each other to grow and evolve. And if that was not true, then why would it be so easy to connect with them like people have been doing for thousands of years? Why would God or divine energy or love make it possible for us to connect that way if there wasn't purpose behind it? That's my belief.
I agree. It's the thing is too, like, I do want to name that if anyone here doesn't believe in signs and you don't believe in an afterlife and that's 100% true too. Like, it's what you believe. I don't want to I don't want to impose this on anyone. I do firmly believe in signs because I've received them over and over and over. And I'm talking about signs that are like, if I tell you some of the signs I've gotten, I know you'll believe me. But I know that some people would say, medic, check her in. She's
Right.
Lulu. But I swear to you,
Right.
it's real. And I'm like, whoa, if I didn't just experience this, I'd be like, you're full of S. That didn't.
Right.
So I don't know. I firmly believe in them, but I just think it's so beautiful that they're even doing that and giving us those signs. That's them saying, I love you. I'm here. I'm with
Right.
you.
Right.
Reach out for me because I'm here. And I think, I just think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to connect with them and to get those signs and to just, if it's comforting to you, it is very comforting to me. It's nothing will ever compare to our person. But for me,
Right.
second best to them being here is
Right.
being able to foster that new connection and a new relationship with them.
Right. Cultivating that spiritual relationship. And I agree with you, it's not for everyone, but for all of you out there who do believe in this, let's normalize it. You are not crazy. This happens all the time. And the more, I will tell you, the more you tune into it, the more it's going to happen. And the more you intentionally try to connect, and the more that you ask, and I have a gazillion ways to do that. That's all on my feed. But the more it happens, it's really, I don't like to use the word crazy, but it's humbling and it's miraculous. That's how I feel about signs. They're humbling and miraculous.
Everybody has to read that book, the Signs book by Laurel.
Oh, yes. Who, by the way, I have a great quote from Laura Lynn Jackson that I'll use in my next video, says that artwork we are channeling spirit when we make art. She does this whole thing on the creative process in artwork and making art, and how artists through the centuries have been we are channeling directly. And I've had that experience myself many, many times. And I'm just telling everyone out there, even like little art therapy practices, open that portal to the other side.
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, I don't know what I was like pre-loss, because it's just like I'm so I'm so one with grief now that I have to really think hard about what life was like before it. But I can understand that before knowing all the stuff that I know in my bone marrow, I know that it's something that can be hard to believe if you didn't experience it, or if you've had, I don't know, zero relationship to deep, profound loss, because that's what happens. It becomes a relationship,
It's a beautiful way to put it. And you have done such an incredible thing with it and created this incredible community. And I love how you have transformed your pain into purpose. And I also love how you say no one has to do that if they don't want to.
No, and like I always say that this wasn't something that I was like, oh, well, I need to do something with my grief. This was something I've always loved, doing group work, and I've always loved, psychology and therapy and all these things. I had no clue that I was going to end up doing work in the grief world. And this happened way after Tony died. For me, it was never about like, what do I do with this? I was like, no, this is something awful and tragic and terrible. And even to this day, Elizabeth, I'll tell you, like, I love being there for as many souls as I can. And this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is my calling, my life's work, whatever you want to name it. But it still doesn't take away that losing Tony is the worst thing I've ever been through. It'll always be a tragedy. It'll never be, oh, well, now I get to be this guide. But no, it's both and. I get to help others survive what I didn't think I could, and I did. So that's why I'm guiding you, because I know that you can, because I know I did. But it is still the most horrific thing I'll go through. I mean, it's still awful. And I did want to say that because a lot of people, especially now, there's this new narrative that you have to make something beautiful out of the worst thing that's happened to you, or that you have to turn it into something, or that if you somehow don't do that, you're doing grief wrong. And that's bullshit.
It's total bullshit. It's just such a personal process. And I want to add to your story, though, that I know in my heart that Tony is like guiding you through all of this.
Oh my gosh.
This is you and Tony together doing this.
Oh yeah. I forget it. We're one. I always say that when he died, I was like breathing with one lung. And then that little lung was just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And eventually that like one lung has the strength for two, but it's still just one. He's got the other one.
So beautiful.
But, oh my gosh. Well, Elizabeth, you were amazing. Everybody, I don't see any questions. I do see some comments. I know that I missed some stuff because I need to get better at TikTok, especially scrolling, but you're amazing. Awakening Dreams Work is your handle. Please follow Elizabeth. Go look at her videos. She is like, seriously, Elizabeth, you do such beautiful work. I really don't even know how we just came across each other on TikTok, and we randomly connected, and we were both like,
We fell in love.
I was like, where have you been all my whole life? Kind of thing. So like, now you're stuck with me.
Yeah, same.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for all the likes and thank you for sharing the live. I hope that this was as supportive to you as it was to me. Thank you for guiding us through the exercise. I'm gonna put my little
I love it. I love it. I love
my
it.
little scribble.
And I want to just add what for anyone who goes to my feed, you can contact me, in link in bio. Please, 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 any questions, any inquiries about art therapy or other practices, but this is my calling and my work. So I'm just so happy to share and spread the love and spread the gift of being able to express what cannot be said with words. That's how I'll put it.
Yes, and I want to tell you all that we're going to definitely, it's in the works. I'll say more about it when we've really, figured this out. But Elizabeth and I are working on doing like a nice little series of art therapy where we're going to create stuff together and break it and put it back, and we're going to make masks and all the things. It's going to be really beautiful and just a beautiful release, and always, like you said, an honoring to our person, because
Yes, honoring our person and honoring ourselves. So
yeah. Awesome.
you are amazing. I cannot thank you enough for having me.
Thank you. And you know what I think we should do? And we'll talk about this, you guys. We should do a thing where you can guide us through like a meditation to connect with our person in our dreams. We should definitely, that should be the next live.
Let's do it.
That's it. That's going to be the next live. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
It was beautiful. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Big namaste to everyone.
Thank you, love. Mwah. Thank you, everybody.